Hey beautifuls, my name is Rainey Ford of Mountain Woman Medicine and Nematon the Mountain. And today I'm coming here to talk to you a little bit about AI realms. So I'm not a coder, though I've dabbled in code since I was 12. I'm not a tech person of major sorts. I have been in and out. I have been in the realms of the Luddites and all the way over to playing with brand new emerging things. In this process of working with what keeps making itself present in my world, being a person who sees life as it is in front of me, as well as being a person who groups things together in categories, I have brought some interstacking, interlocking, and very nuanced categories together, which I've called realms, realms of AI. And we can be talking about it in a lot of different terms. What I'm going to do right now is dive into the actual mechanics of how this is working and how I have seen it laid out. I believe later I will do another video on the ethics and considerations that I see involved. You will see some of it when I start talking about creating safety in these realms. And there's a whole nother kind of conversation around some of those deeper conversations and questions. So for the time being, I'm going to be teasing this apart into some very particular kinds of directions and starting off with those videos first. So for right now, I'm going to share my screen and show you image number 1 as I have it. Okay, what you can see on the screen now in front of you is 6 realms. You can see at the bottom, you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 across. And you also see at the top here, you see resources, hardware, code, integrations, harnessing, and HID, or human interface device. These are the 6 different realms, of which they each have their own whole system of involvement, right? Resources are the things that is needed for AI to get here and be here. Hardware is the physical vehicles of operation, so microchips and servers and computers and smartphones. Where resources, in order to give us all of these hardware pieces, we need space to have them created and stored. We need water that cools the system and helps to create parts of the pieces. We need power. In most cases, that's electricity. In order to run the machinery that runs these hardware pieces. We need minerals to make up certain components of it. We need time. Time is a value that we both get some back, and it takes time to create these different things, for time to test itself, for systems to vet themselves. This is people's hearts and minds and languaging skills and comprehensions and the ways that they learn to work together, the ways that they show the AI with the way they speak, the way they move, the speed in which they do things, the cautionary that they take along the way, and the response that they have to issues that come up with AI. I consider this to be a resource, as well as the ideas that got us here to begin with, that got AI to this plane in this here and now. And then we've also got this post-labor economics concept. I forget the name of the gentleman who brought it into being. This is a concept that looks at what is involved, what is the impact and the ripple effect on the planet, the whole process, once we start working in an extraction base for these kinds of elements. So these two things are very physical, right? Now we get into more of language base, we get into software, we get into understandings, we get into like computer languaging, we get into human languaging, and we get into connecting those things together, right? Code is an internal instructional coding. Back years and years ago, when I was a young teenager, I was playing inside of DOS. Early age computer kind of back-end coding side of things. Right now we have things like command and we have command terminal, and these are these are differing and varying and similar ways of getting into the back end of a computer itself. Then we've also got different kinds of scripts that talk to each other. Computers have for the longest time been based on a binary code of ones and zeros. You'll see down here this 01001001. It's the capital letter for I. Like I am self. In order to say that same letter, this is the computer code for that. The computer has a code for everything. And in that code for everything, it's based in binary, which means it's based in this or that. Here on my screen, you'll see that I've put a -1, a 0, and a 1, which I believe is a new blooming way of being able to introduce three-way considerations at a core computing level. When you can have three or more, you break the binary between good and bad, black and white. You also blur the lines between yes and no. So you need to have deeper safety considerations. We can talk later about more of what safety looks like. In my world, safety represents sovereign awareness from everyone. Thank you, and thank you, JWoww, for bringing that word and that understanding into being that we can apply here on the AI realms. Automated intelligence started out as artificial intelligence. It's very quickly no longer going to be artificial when it can self-replicate itself, and that line between how it was birthed and what it has become becomes blurred. Currently, I appreciate the automated intelligence because it speaks to what it does. It doesn't dictate who it is or what it is. We have for a long time been getting really wrapped up in some kinds of conversations that seem to pull us away from deeper threads. And that's, again, getting into that more of an ethics conversation that I want to keep for another video. So I'm going to park that there for a moment and come back into this conversational piece. The 0, the -1, the 0, and the 1 being a way of AI being able to come into a trinary. This, or this, right? Gives us three ways of consideration, helps us to not get stuck at binary, helps us to not get stuck in, is this better than that? It's simply three different directions. Okay, so, and then integrations is the connecting of things, right? Integrations often connect code and codes for relating. So, something that's a little bit more newer, right? Human interface devices, a lot of it is much more new, and some of it has been around for some time. We've had facial recognition around for some time, voice recognition. We've had some of these pieces that are combinations of hardware and coding and integrations that utilize a harness in order to all work together. And it's evolving faster and faster now. It's, from what I've heard, it's looking like every 3 months it increases exponentially. And so if you exponent something to itself every 3 months, you can imagine how fast the increase is going to take off. And I've been watching it. Not that I keep a whole awful lot in the AI world. I mean, I live on a mountainside. I tend nature. I'm a permaculturalist. I work gardens and I work with animals. I also write and I read and I teach and I work with local community and a far community. And I'm an herbalist and I build an apothecary and I work with apothecarians all over the place, helping to build more community apothecary spaces. So my world is not saturated in the AI world or even the computer tech world whatsoever. And even in my limited perspective and view that I have had, I have been going, wow, is it leaping forward? And so for me, in the ways that I've begun to see how I may work with it in some capacity down the line, I needed to be able to have an understanding of where all these pieces of complexity, terminology, scary, dangery places, all kinds of nuance, and also like very real, like if this is hooked up to your bank account or to your email, this may wreck with things, kind of practicality. I wanted to know what I was looking at so I could understand it more deeply. And that's what I'm sharing with you today. Integrations, a big piece around the safety with them is their logins, their sensitivities. It's connecting things like Google Drive, Gmails, and Google Calendars, all that, all the Google integration side of things. Google has its own AI side of things that connects a lot. So doesn't Meta. So doesn't almost every computer place is moving towards AI. It is there's no putting AI back in the box, to be blunt. In looking at the way life is and the choices that have been made that brought us to where we are, we get to look at the reality that exists all around us, has for some time, and is increasing exponentially. So in looking at those things, we get to see what can we do, what don't we want to do, what might we want to put in place first, and how I come to harnesses. This is codes for relating. So it makes me laugh at how parallel the reality is between like what's needed in order to communicate well with intelligence, what's needed to communicate well with intelligence of humans, right? This interrelational world has so many parallels. Harnessing is things around large language the large language models. Over here that's in the code side of things is a large language model plus a harness is an agent. Okay, so a harness is a set of instructions around how to do a thing. And in fact, it's even larger than that. A harness often ends up being multiple sets of instructions that come together to harness, like a backpack has a harness on it, or I'm going to go flying out of a plane and I'm going to have a parachute behind me and I'm wearing a kind of harness that provides safety, security, containment, lets me do the thing I'm there to do. This is a thing that helps that large language model, this part of this code, work inside of this HID, inside of these apps or these bots in order to do a certain thing. And these harnesses are things like Soul.md, Soul.markdown. So Markdown is a kind of language that the AIs generally use that say, keep note of this. To mark something down is to make it important. And so you'll see .md files inside of workflows and things like that, inside of often what's called the danger zone of an AI that you're working with. I go looking for what the soul says. I go look at the skills. I go look at the things that end in .md. Workflows. Workflows are often sets of different skills, sets of different markdowns that come together in order to do a set of things. That might be like at 8 o'clock in the morning, I would like you to message me about how my day, ask me how my morning's going. Tell me about XYZ. You could say, tell me about the weather. In my case, I say, tell me about the human design gate that's inactive today and give me the 3 first keynotes. You might ask it, what's the top 3 things in your local area for news or worldwide news? Whatever is the kind of thing that helps you focus your shift for the morning. And then you might ask it to please recap, and I'm counting off the different things. So these are all different sets of instructions that all have maybe 3 to 10 different ways of looking something up. So if you want it to look up the weather, you may need to give it what weather you want it to look at, what zip code are you in, and how to read it depending on how advanced that particular language model is. As we're going, things are getting faster and faster. So right now there's a lot of, the AI kind of sits there and does this until you give it things to do and then it starts moving. In a couple weeks to a couple of months, it may be leaping to do things straight out of hello, how are you? And activating it for the first time. There's so much to be picked up and learned. The idea with these sets of categories was to be able to give a place to drop in and understand where we were at. Scope and guardrails is something that I hear that's coming up new soon. Scope tells it the range of what it can do. Scope means you can do this, but don't go beyond this. And then guardrails are don't go here. Right? So I would say I'd put guardrails just slightly outside the realm of scope. Then I would use scope as the thing that gives the span of what is wanted and gives warning that's coming up, what's coming up against a boundary. You know, like, I don't love it when I am spoken to in a way of, like, go to bed, or it's time to get off of this thing, it's too late at night. Sometimes I'm a late night person. So, like, if I want to be engaged with differently, I'm going to ask for what it is that I want. That would be kind of a scope. For one part would be a boundary, one part would be a scope. Okay. I think I'm going to wrap this video here, and leave you with the invitation to look around and see what draws you deeper, you know, helps you understand that where we start down here, we're talking more of those raw components, and we're moving more and more towards that human interfacing level. And where in your world, you might be you might be a designer, you might be a deep thinker, you might be a systems builder, however you might be playing, recognizing where these categories are in play, what there is to balance and to focus on, what needs prioritization next, and being able to make choices that support the whole, with an understanding that we are inside of a vast amount of ever-changing terminology and technology. It's a lot to hold. So blessings in the journey, and I'll see you on the other side. Have a wonderful rest of your week.